Everyone, it's Anela here from the Grounded Parents, and I am super excited. I've got a lovely guest, Dani from Healthy Whole Me, and Terry. So we are going to be. So Terry is here. Let me try and enjoy. Call them all in. All right, Dani, yes, and I see Terry. This is wonderful. Okay, so I've invited them both, and Terry is here.
Hi.
Yay!
Hi, ladies.
Oh, I'm so delighted. My two favorite people.
Hi,
Look
ladies.
at
Hi,
you.
Terry. Nice to meet you.
You too, Dani. What a gift. What a gift to us. Thank you.
Do you know what, ladies? I'm absolutely not here to share anything today. I just want to be in your company today.
Same.
Same. You know what?
Somebody better share something.
Yeah, we'll. I'm sure. Now I've had such a hectic evening, and I was just thinking, okay, in a bit, like I'm going to be talking to Terry and Dani, and that makes it good.
Absolutely. And you know what? I was saying to you before, wasn't I, Sanela, that I said no to so many lives over the last year or two. And I just thought I'd love to talk to you. And every time you come to yoga on a Sunday night and I see you in your living room joining us on Zoom, I think I just want to have a chat with you. And now this is my opportunity to chat with you.
Well, just to give a bit of a context, like, you know, we met, I don't know, is it 2 or 3 years ago? I can't.
Yeah, 2.5
The time has gone kind of a bit in some loop to somewhere. And I have to say, so I went to, so what Dani does beautifully, she has this, I don't know, you gather women around you, and so what you hosted is one of those evenings, and I came to speak there about perfectionism and courage, and, you know, my favorite topics, and self-compassion. And I have to say, from the moment I walked in, and the whole setup, the soulfulness of that evening was just phenomenal. And it's one of my, you know, my favorite things I've done. So
amazing. Thank you. Oh, it's lovely. And I love what you and Terry do. And often your posts just pop up at the right time for me as a, you know, busy mum to 3 daughters. And so it's fantastic to sort of just be in each other's company, isn't it? And to be held in that space. It's great.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Likewise. Well, I love our topic as well. So just for people joining, we want to talk about 2 major life changes under one roof. So puberty and menopause. And I put today in the stories because I've been thinking about this. Like, you know, we have this massive two generations going through this massive life transition on two ends of the life journey, if you like. You know, one at the beginning, where, you know, we associate that puberty as the beginning of life, the blossoming, the kind of you know, you're entering your most productive years of your life, typically speaking. Like, this is the context, the kind of how we view that. And then we have this, I would say, mid-age mixed with menopause, for matters, obviously, where that is seen differently, very differently. So we are at the end of our reproductive life. We are, there is that sense of fading, of settling down. I kind of thought, like, you know, in puberty, you are becoming visible. And in sort of in menopause and middle age, you're sort of, there's that sense again that, you know, I can't wait for you, Dani, to talk about it. There's this sense that, you know, we are fading in the background. And I totally don't want that to be, and that's what we're going to be talking about. But that's where we are. So we have those 2 things in one house, and I'm curious what I want to put on the table and see where it takes us. I just want to talk about this dynamic that happens, and, you know, we are going through the same things, you would say. You know, it's both stages are existential. It's all about, who am I and who am I going to become in the next stage of my life? yet it can be so separating, so divisive, so we could kind of lose that understanding and sight of each other. So that's what I'm going to put on the table. So whoever wants to go first.
You know what? It would be great to hear from whoever is watching now, whoever lives under a roof with perhaps teenage children. Maybe just put hands up in comments, or if you live in one of those hormonal households where perhaps you think you're going through perimenopause and perhaps you're living with children or stepchildren or other relatives that are maybe going into the puberty, it would be great to hear from you, so we sort of know who is here and who we're talking to. Yes, me too.
Oh yes, fabulous. And Terry, if I may ask you, like I'm still quite I would say bad with these lives, so I can focus on what you two are saying, but looking at the chat is a little bit above my station at the moment, or grade or whatever knowledge. So I'll do my best, but Terry, please, like if you help me as well, if you can. I can see
Absolutely. I'll manage chat. I'll manage chat.
Fabulous, thank you.
I think language is really important. Like you just explained so beautifully, we're blossoming into our teenage years. We're becoming a woman. We are leaving sort of the girl phase behind. And who are we becoming? You know, the adult in us, the femininity is sort of blossoming. And I went on a yoga teacher training for menopause last year, I think it was. And there was a beautiful guest speaker, and I'm sure she meant very well. And I can't even remember exactly what her background was. I'd have to lie now, I can't remember. She was talking about the menopause from her aspect, and she said, you know, it's almost like menopause is women are shriveling. It's like the grape is shriveling into a raisin. And we were all laughing because everyone in the course was in perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause. But I don't think she meant badly. But I think the concept, the general sort of old-fashioned way of thinking is, yes, we're becoming lesser of. We're always talking in our language, the loss of fertile years, a loss of libido, a lack of sex drive, a loss of hormones. The language we're using is very much directed to what we're losing. Yeah. And so I often think that language doesn't help. I don't think anyone means badly. I think we've just become so used to using those words and using that terminology. And I think it really starts with becoming more aware of how we talk about it and what do we talk about. And one lady just said, my eldest daughter is just 15, already in her puberty stage. It's a whole different lifestyle for me. Yeah. And it's exactly those two those two polarizing what's happening. And often I feel women I speak to, we lose a little bit of our identity and that sense of who we are when we start our 40s and then 50s. And that's got nothing really to do with your perimenopause or menopause. That is something that's happened over living the decades, 10, 20, 30, 40 years of our life. And so children often discover, they become a bit more rebellious, don't they? It's quite good. My daughters are now starting to roll their skirts up, and I have to really bite my mouth, bite my tongue and let them become who they want to become. And at the same time, so many women I speak to, it's very much about, well, I've done so well. I've raised my family. I've put time into my career. I'm now flying forward. And then you sort of suddenly wake up and women say to me, and now what? I don't actually know what the next 10, 20 years are going to hold for me. So it is very much an actively rediscovering of that time as well. Yeah.
And you, I mean, Terry and I think we spoke about this on Monday or so, like, you were saying that when so there's something about perimenopause, which it's kind of hormonal change, and I'll go to that later, but there is something about that happens at this time, as you say, Dani, in this time of our life, that sort of, we've done the things by the book, if you like, and now it's we come to the part of our lives where we kind of think, okay, so what now? I don't know many people who kind of arrive at this stage and say, I nailed this, and can kind of say, yes, I can just carry on. I think this is a period where we re-examining. There's lots of re-examining, and I think seeing our kids kind of breaking away and discovering themselves like very separate from us could be quite jarring. Could be quite like, you know, what is happening. And if we do not embrace this stage of our lives as something that is blossoming and kind of developing into something else, we can become very conservative, very constraining of their development as well, and lose on the opportunity to develop ourselves.
Well, I'll reply to that one lady in a moment. She said, I'm 40, no menopause yet. I would love to really learn more from what I should be looking forward to. And that's why I loved our conversation so much. There's been an abundance of conversations about what to do about your symptoms in perimenopause and menopause, with the most amazing menopause doctors coming on Instagram and sharing their expertise. But wouldn't it be an amazing world if we actually arrived feeling ready and not always feeling on the back foot? And that is really where we're all heading with all the information that is going on in perimenopause and in the menopause space. Really, I think we're working towards feeling much more prepared. So the conversation needs to happen in our 30s and 40s.
Gosh.
Coming back to what you said, Sanela, I think in a traditional sense, society has no rules for us when we get to perimenopause and menopause. Our generation, we have to create those rules now. So society had a lot of plans for us, right? You hit puberty, you will most likely get your period and you will become a woman. Society is planning for us to go to school, to perhaps have further education. Society is planning for us to perhaps become mothers. Even now, many women I speak to, they still ask, did you not want to become a mom, or why aren't you? You know, it's still a thing. We shouldn't really be questioning women of their choice of becoming mothers or not, whether that was their choice or life has happened like this. And then suddenly society has no more plans. You've done your children, you've embarked on your perhaps education and career. And then what is society? Has no more plans for us. And for the last generation, this is, I think, the last 2 or 3 generations only, it's become difficult. 100 years ago, women lived to about 57. Life expectancy in the UK is now around 81 years. So we have an extra 20, 30 years to live in that post-menopausal space.
Yes.
And we need to, as a society, as women, as men together, we need to define what that looks like for us. And I think this is where the void comes from. It's not really about your symptoms so much. Of course, we need more information of how to manage them, but really it's very much about what do we do with that whole chapter?
Yeah, but we still have plans. I still have plans for me, even if society doesn't, right? And that's such an important point. You know, we've sort of probably too much so done what society expected of us up to this point. And then we get to this point where society really hasn't planned much for you, and you think, am I done? But maybe, you know, Sanel and I talk about, you know, kind of taking control of your life, taking, you know, charge of your own destiny, kind of being the decider and programmer from earlier in your life, that, you know, you can really dictate. You know, you don't have to go along with society. You can form your own path. And I think there's benefit we're seeing in this conversation now, if we can do that earlier, already form that habit of, you know, forging our own path. When we get to this stage or this point on the line, that we will feel very comfortable continuing to do that.
That's right. And I totally agree with you there. I think one of the main problems we have is that many women are still walking around with a little bit of that good girl complex. And I have it, and I know so many women that have it, and so many of my friends, and we want to just do so well, and we want to just be so good, and we want to do good by everyone, like be fair in our workplace, and do the best for our families, and do the best for our older generations, and do so well. And as soon as we say no, there is a little bit of that chip on our shoulder where we think, was that selfish, and was it egotistical of me to react that way? And I think there is still a really big divide between perhaps how men navigate that space and how women navigate that space. And I guess in general, we need to shift that sort of good girl complex, because it rarely serves anyone, doesn't it? Doesn't ever serve me.
No.
But I recognize it more and more. I just want to, you know, so many of us want to do good by so many people. And actually, is there another way, isn't there?
Yeah. And I'm like, gosh, I'm so fed up with all of that. And even like if I see it in my daughter, if I kind of see that, because you know it's not something that we can protect even our children from. It's just some it will take some time to kind of take that away from as a almost as a gift that we get. And I think that we get that gift, you know, we get that burden to carry, that good girl burden in puberty years. I think, you know, this is where we sort of become so and you know, now our kids are going through that, and I say girls and boys, there's so much pressure and so much expectation for them to be certain way. And this is an interesting thing, like, you know, now listening to you, how you describe these opportunities, like, you know, there is really for our generation, and I see that, I see some great Instagram accounts where, you know, you have women in their 50s and 60s and really kind of breaking those boundaries and kind of saying, like, you know, this is how I want this next phase of my life to be. And sometimes it comes with, you know, deconstructing the life they built, and that is quite painful and transformative, and you know, I don't know, life generating and affirming. But
it's quite something, isn't it, when you see, and I think we need to look for the role models that are sort of our gut sort of speaks to us, you know, where we are spoken to by some role models, and really just go and create those pictures for ourselves, whether that's on Instagram or Facebook or wherever people might hang out, or you might read books. I'm reading a great book at the moment. It's called Difficult Women. And it's a little bit of a history on feminism. And ever since I've started reading it, I really think I need to become a bit more of a difficult woman. And it is really something I want to choose. And in a way, I often think, because I run a program where I guide women through perimenopause and menopause, a little bit on a more deeper level than just finding solutions to their symptoms. But a lot of the symptoms, they can be very physical, of course, and they can also be you've got lots of mental, so anxiety, for example, or that rage, that menopausal rage and anger. They're very, very common symptoms of especially the perimenopause. And sometimes in some women, I find them helpful. So a little bit, so we get to that time in our life where perhaps perimenopause makes us feel really outraged. We feel angry, we feel short-tempered, and that is not great. And often these symptoms can be treated. However, when we look at the root cause of those symptoms, perhaps we have a right to be angry. Many women that by then live in relationships that don't serve them anymore. They have an environment around them, a work, a career that actually isn't really that healthy for them anymore. So perhaps some of those feelings that come up and those negative symptoms that come up in our perimenopause and menopause can actually be quite helpful. I'm not saying we should all be walking around feeling outraged, but when we look at where that rage comes from, you know, we can do so much about our symptoms, but when we really look at why am I so outraged, is it really out of the blue? And if it's out of the blue, you'd absolutely need help, and there is a lot of help and lots we can do. But sometimes that rage is actually quite validated. You know, often I've just spoken to a lady the other day, and she's depressed and she's wondering whether she should go on antidepressants, but there are a lot of things that aren't working for her in her life, and so her body has a right to almost put a stop on it. And once we can look at all of that and perhaps turn the rage into a roar and maybe a more gentle way of expressing it, then things can shift, and you can really, it's become quite powerful and quite exciting.
Oh gosh, I absolutely love that. I love that. And I mean, I had a similar conversation with somebody else, and this is what kind of scares me a little bit, and this is maybe how we feel that rage. We feel, you know, I think by this time in our lives, we know what's not working. We know what's not serving us. And this then it becomes about about courage to actually do something about it. And that is scary. That requires some, you know, maybe some deeper inner work. That you know, some you know, to kind of bring the lioness out in a way that she can you know, in all her glory, not just her rage, but you know, in her fullness. And I think what sometimes that scares us, sometimes, you know, I see that kind of old, you know, and the doctors also, you know, this, I think the system is like, oh, here's an antidepressant. I think there's like, it freaks me out, you know, because that is, yes, that might, you know, it's almost kind of like, you know, go back and numb. And I think this is the, you know, having somebody like, you know, this is why, you know, I watched your masterclass, and then this is why I love the messages you're putting around. It's kind of, I think we really do need and benefit from that guidance, from that sort of gentle space where we can explore and put that anger on the table, and have somebody sort of tell us that it's okay. It's actually, it might be okay to feel that way, just to validate us.
The problem is we have to redefine so much when we get to this stage in our life, and sometimes it can feel really overwhelming.
Yes.
And so we have to most certainly look at the way we eat, right? We've come to this far and we've eaten a certain way, and suddenly things aren't working. And every day someone says to me, Dani, I've not done anything different. I exercise the same, I eat the same, and I'm now just piling on the weight. Yeah, because guess what? Your body has changed, right? Internally, your body is changing, going through a huge shift. Most likely we need to address how we fuel our body. Same things aren't going to work. So that's a huge change. That alone, you know, we have experts all over the world just addressing that. It's a huge thing. The way we move is changing. You know, I've got teenagers, so my twins are 11 now, my other daughter is 13. I'm getting them to move as much as possible. Our bone density is created at that age.
Okay.
At around that age, you know, in young girls, even before they hit the teenage years, around that age, what my daughters are in now, this is when we're going to determine how good their bones are really. Of course, genetics plays a huge part. Then our bones peak at the age of 30, and then they, for example, reduce the bone density. And we're often very worried about brittle bones, aren't we? Osteoporosis and stuff like that further on in our lives. And so again, the way we move, the way we eat is most likely going to have to change. What has worked for us until now isn't going to work. The way we address our relationships. How do we argue with our other halves? How much do we let our children get away with? It has to be addressed and perhaps looked at and changed. And so it's so much going on, from what we do, from what we eat and how we move, to how we communicate and our boundaries that we're setting. And it can just feel like a massive project that is a little bit overwhelming. But by dipping into chats, perhaps like ours today, and if anyone is interested about solutions to their physical problems or mental problems, I can tag loads of great accounts in the bottom of this chat that people can then go and explore in their own time. But I think it's just opening the conversation and talking away from just symptoms, because our menopause and that shift is not just our symptoms. Like puberty is not just getting a period. It's a lot more than that. Teenage girls are becoming women. So if we just talk about perimenopause and menopause in the formal context of I've got symptoms, what doctor can help me, then we're going to really, really, really just scratch the surface of what is possible for us. And that's a shame, isn't it?
No, I'm kind of, I'm smiling because it's, I see properly as a doorway. I see this like, it's another chance. Like we get these chances, and puberty is sort of like, you know, the first chance to become who we are meant to be. And I think this is equally that chance. Like, you know, the train is moving, and if we kind of just look at the surface, we'll stay on the platform. And but you know, if we dare to embrace this as a holistic change, in the way, you know, with lots of self-love, with lots of self-compassion, with lots of boundaries, I think this could be an amazing period of
and our
life.
generation hasn't really been raised with enough opportunities, I feel. I mean, if you think back, we're probably all similar ages. When we were younger, there was no such a thing as social media. We had magazines, right? Everyone was perfect in magazines and the front cover, so you saw such a small glimpse, and everyone was just beautiful. I have to do a lot of work now in my 40s, thinking what is body image, what is okay, am I okay with my stretch marks, am I okay with certain things? Because actually for many years I thought is a very much a thing that I'll hide away, something you don't show. You don't show your, that is just my thing. So I'm exploring now in my 40s, you know, I'm exploring now in my 40s, and it's quite interesting because I think we've been denied so many ideas in our head because we haven't been shown, and then with social media, you know, how the algorithms just give you what you've once been interested in, so you're really not opening yourself. You know, we've always been just, our role models were women in their 20s, maybe 30s, and that was it. We haven't been shown the role models in their 50s, 60s and 70s, but from a few, you know. And so I think we've been very limited with what we've seen as well. Anna is saying this is so reassuring. That's nice, Anna. And I think it's now we have a responsibility with social media to open our eyes. And if that is long silver hair you're after, go and subscribe to a hashtag and your feed will be full of women with long silver hair. You know, go for it.
Somebody done that. Terry, haven't you done that? You were exploring changing your hair and there was...
Yes, well, this is, it's just shorter now, but I was starting with maybe I should shave my head. So we do tend to go to drastic extremes, but, you know, I think what I would just like to underscore that I hear Dani saying is that this is another transition in our life. And it speaks to anybody who's not there yet to begin making this a habit, right? Self-reflection, getting to know oneself, getting to, you know, really do some self-development and personal development so that we are always in the process of becoming, so that when we get to this phase of our life, that this is another stage of becoming, and it's seen as more of a continuum and not an abrupt shift for us.
I think one of the things I'd like to add to this, Terry, because it's brilliant how you described it, and I think the addition there would be we need to become prepared, and that's one of the biggest differentiations I think I'd like to make to puberty and perhaps perimenopause. We prepare. It's a rite of passage going into puberty, right? We prepare our young women, even the young men, you know, teenage men, we prepare them for that next stage, for that gift of becoming adults, and perhaps life-bearing women when teenagers have their periods, for example. We have no Scooby-Doo when it comes to the perimenopause, and it has changed, especially over the last year or two. We've got so many amazing doctors. I will tag them underneath later again, that have spoken so much sense and given so much advice, but the majority of women I speak to have no idea what has happened to them, and by the time they speak to me or someone else, they're in the thick of it, and their life is actually quite awful at that moment because they're riddled with so many symptoms, and often they creep up on you. And if you think back to perhaps, I don't know, Terry, if you have children, Terry?
Yes, I've got 2 boys, 15 and 13.
Right, and I don't know, so I had my children in the UK, and I went to antenatal classes, and they were organized by the hospital, and we had all the other pregnant mums with their partners in, and we were preparing for our birth. Anyone's that written a birth plan will know 99% they go out of the window as soon as you have your first contraction. But we sit there and we prepare for that next stage in our life. As mothers, we often do that with our teenage children. Who the heck does it when we enter perimenopause? No one. We've got no idea what's happening to us. And I think it's an underservice. It's changing now, which is fantastic, but we don't really know. So often symptoms really creep up on us. Anxiety, especially in perimenopause, brain fog, joint ache. So many women go to the doctor for numerous appointments about numerous symptoms without any answers. And often, 1 or 2 years, months can go by without getting the answer, and you've actually lived a life that was had a real compromise to it in how you're feeling and what you're doing. And so we need to start addressing, this is going to happen in your late 30s, early 40s. This is the biggest message, I think. It is not going to happen just in your 50s. The transition, the symptoms, how you're feeling, however you're responding to it. And the majority of women do have symptoms of the perimenopause and menopause. It will happen in your 40s.
This is so insightful. This is so insightful, Dani. Having just turned 50 myself this year, I'm thinking like, like I'm sitting here thinking, oh, but I haven't quite had symptoms yet. So I'm just kind of listening for the future, and I'm thinking, I'm like 2 decades behind already. So first of all, I would like to share that you've got lots of hearts coming in from the listeners, because they're really resonating with your enthusiasm and your knowledge around this. And also that this is, something to prepare for, and we prepare children for puberty, but they've got their parents around them then. And here we are, and if we're lucky, we still have our parents with us, but they're kind of stepped out of that role by this point of preparing us for something.
But
And
also, Terry, I don't know how many mums of our mums, they have probably zipped when they went through their menopause.
Yes.
It wasn't a thing.
100%. No.
So most of the parents
That's
from our
right.
generation, they've got very little to sort of offer, because they shut up.
Yeah.
It's put it as that. They had
no voice.
So we need
voice.
you. We need you, Dani. This is why we need you and all of the resources you're going to share with us, because
I'm going to disagree there and then. Everyone has the ability to find a menopause buddy. If you've watched, Sanela, you've watched my masterclass, haven't you? I've put together a 1-hour talk. It was in lockdown when I thought, I'm really passionate about this, but I need to put it into my own words. We have specialists sharing treatment solutions. We have amazing women really campaigning for the right use of HRT. We have so much disjustice that was done back in 2002 with the misreporting of that study. We're still putting that right, our generation. But I wanted to find my own words and my own take, because I'm so passionate about digging a little bit deeper. Really. And Terry, I think everyone has the opportunity to find a menopause body.
What does that mean?
And that means to me that you find a like-minded woman. She could be in your work, she could be in the canteen, when you're in an office, when you're boiling the kettle. And it's important to just find that person who is with you on that journey. Speak to someone about it. Find a friend, find a buddy, and talk about your experiences. We are so good at covering up. You want to hide your hot flushes. I understand they can be so embarrassing. We want to hide all of our symptoms because we want to pretend to everyone everything is okay and we're managing. Even if underneath we're actually flagging and life can be really difficult. We want to pretend. We want to pretend that we've got our shit together, right? That's what we're brilliant at, excuse my language. And so that menopause body is really there for you to say exactly as it is. The more honest we can be in talking about our dry vaginas or other symptoms, the more the other woman is going to be able to be honest. And with honesty becomes a little bit of clarity, I feel. And with that clarity, we can then look into the right direction for perhaps help, whether that is your GP, whether that is an over-the-counter something, whether that is HRT. In my world, I don't really care what women do, but you go and get the right help rather than pretending you've got everything sorted. And that menopause body can just really help you find that honest space.
Yes, and do you, Dani? I mean, we're kind of over our half an hour, but I mean, maybe we come back to this. But what I'm really curious about, you talk about this preparing women. So, is there like something that you think? What would that be? Like, if there was a thing to prepare or to be more aware of, what
in an ideal world, we have in our late 30s, beginning of our 40s, we have a health check with our GP. A menopause first sort of touch base, that would be ideal, I think. Someone to run through perhaps a symptom checker with us. I don't know if both of you are aware. So there is a fantastic app called the Balance app. It's a free app, it's a free tool. And you can go in and actually just track your symptoms. You can track your period. You can notice any changes. And many women are really surprised when we talk about how many symptoms of the perimenopause and menopause there are. There are so many that we actually don't always associate with the perimenopause and menopause. And so it's important to be aware of those, because it could be reoccurring urinary tract infections in your 40s. And you think, actually, I'm just going to treat them with antibiotics. Maybe your GP is giving you antibiotics. And those urinary tract infections, if they're reoccurring, they could be because of lower estrogen levels. Now, unless you know that, you are not going to know how to really get on top of your reoccurring UTIs. So it's knowing your symptoms.
Did not know that.
Right, but that's just one example. I don't want to go into all of the symptoms now, because that's a chat maybe for a doctor or a GP or another time. But it's really knowing of what we can expect, and that our symptoms someone said, oh
Can
my
we
God, I
ask the
missed
at
the
name?
app name. I will do
Yeah.
that again. It's called Balance App. Balance App.
As a
And
balance.
it's the app by Dr. Louise Newson. It's a free tool and it's a fantastic resource to get you started and to really find a lot of information. And so I think by becoming aware that it's going to happen in your 40s, most likely, and not in your 50s, we need to bring it 10 years forward.
Yeah.
We need to be aware of all of the symptoms. That is the preparing, I think. And then really actually just being more mindful, and that's the work you both do so beautifully, always touching in with yourself, you know, and understanding what has changed for me. Is my sleep changing? Is my sleep changing because life is difficult and I'm perhaps worried about corona or COVID or something else? Or is it because I've got no reason, and could it be my perimenopause? And so it's heightening our awareness a little bit. And so I think that preparation, because we don't obviously have an ideal world, can be a long process. Like nothing happens overnight. And
And if I listen, so I listen to that, and I have my coach's hat on, and I'm thinking what I would put on that list is learning to love ourselves. I think that would be, and getting to know ourselves through our own eyes, rather than with the kind of good girl or expectations, you know, like just peeling. I think the you know, I would say from 30s onwards, you know, peeling those expectations, understanding what's yours, what's not yours, and really, I think if we were to start loving ourselves and learning that skill, because I think, you know, in puberty, if anything we pick up is the sense of, you know, high expectations of how we should look, how, you know, who we should be, and that we kind of gather from everyone. And I think that process of really discovering ourselves would be definitely on my list, so that when we enter, so that we can then be prepared mentally, like, you know, in our sort of mindset, to actually approach this and say, hey, you know, I'm anxious, and that's not because I'm not good enough, or because it's you know, I'm crap, and, you know, do you know what I mean? Like, you know, I remember when I developed those symptoms of anxiety, I was like, you know, I just went into that space of not being okay with myself. And
I think that is why it's so important that we have amazing doctors really talking about treatment options for us. Because one of my main symptoms, so my menopause was brought on by surgery just before I turned 40, and that transported me into post-menopause from one day to the other. And although I went and I had great help with it, one of my main symptoms for the year or two after was really a lack of confidence.
Yes.
And that lack of confidence really stopped me in my ways in many things. Like, there are many things I had lined up that I said no to after a few months. So I had a book deal with an amazing agent about writing the most amazing ultimate guide for family well-being. You know how passionate I am. And I had an amazing agent with a great publishing house. And actually 4 months in, I cancelled it all. I did not think I was worthy of putting it all together, and I had it to say. And I now know that wasn't me just being lazy, or me just not working hard enough. I now know that was a symptom of my menopause. And so it's really important that we know that. And because when you have those feelings of anxiety, of low self-worth, that your confidence goes. So many women suddenly don't feel confident driving anymore. You know, it's a very common one, right? It's very difficult to love yourself. And so that's why I think in our way of preparing, that rite of passage needs to be evidence-based information, full stop, that's it.
Yeah,
and we need to lose the stigma, absolutely lose the stigma. Many conversations I hear are very much menopause is a this or that approach. You know, you either do it naturally or you do it on HRT. I think that's a really unhelpful conversation. Whatever works for you, but you've got to do something so that our symptoms don't stop us in our tracks. And so I think if I have one message, that is everyone deserves to just tackle it as best as they can. And go and look and talk and speak to so many people until you find the answers, and become a difficult woman.
Yes.
Right? Become the difficult woman, because the more difficult you are. You know, when I coach my ladies through my program, I sometimes have to say to them, today's the day when you need to nag your GP. Because if you have a cheerleader, I am their menopause buddy, right, Terry? That's the body. That's the job of the body. The body will say, go for it. Don't be annoying to your GP. You deserve an answer.
Yes.
And I think this is perhaps what we all need to become, really difficult, so that we get the answers that really serve us and help us.
Oh,
brilliant. Brilliant. Oh, lots of love, lots of love, lots of love for you.
I would be pressing like, you know, here's my love. No, beautiful.
I know.
Thank you so much. I think that's just a beautiful sort of time to you know, to close this. I think it's a beautiful message, because I mean, I would, you know, I would stay here and talk to you.
Well, I don't know about you, but I know my teenagers downstairs are probably on some sort of iPad game that I wouldn't allow them to be on at that time of the day. So I better go as well.
No, thank you so much for joining us. I absolutely enjoy everything, and thank you for sharing your resources and your enthusiasm.
Thank you. I will spend time.
We just
underneath.
love your mission. I really, you know, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. So thank you for, if you can put stuff in there, that will really.
I will absolutely. Terry, it was really nice to meet you too.
You too, Dani. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. My one takeaway, Sanel and I do this. My one takeaway is definitely the menopause buddy, because what I heard you say is that that's the place where you can speak out everything that you wouldn't normally speak to somebody else. And we talk about that in our work with shame resilience. And it's the way to get out from those not good enough feelings, is to speak it out loud with somebody you trust. So I take that right into this journey as well. And your wisdom and enthusiasm have kind of kicked me in the butt tonight to get going and get learning. Thank you so much.
Amazing, amazing ladies. Thank you so much. It was great to talk.
Lovely to talk. And you know, we can do this again.
Bye, my lovely ladies. Bye, Terry.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Dani.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Okay. So.